as well, or I should say on mute, as well as their cameras are off unless they are speaking. That would be great, because I know as we get into the program, it can serve as a distraction for a lot of people. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us as we work through some technical glitches. There are always technical glitches. But again, I want to welcome you to the Mayor's Cabinet in the Community. It is a virtual cabinet in the community for Council District 5. And before we get started on this fall night, housekeeping is always first. We want to make sure everyone has equal access. So we have several translators for tonight's Cabinet in the Community on Zoom. One for our Spanish speaking participants, and that's going to come from Valentina. One for our Burmese speaking participants, and that's going to come from Noor, and a translator for our Amharic participants. And Ephraim is going to be speaking and translating for you all, and it will happen in that order. But first, if you need translation services, you can also find those services on the Mayor's Facebook page or on the City of Denver's Facebook page. Access to the translators will be made available as soon as all the translators have introduced themselves, so you will know. And there's a globe at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and that's going to be made available momentarily. But you'll click on that globe and pick the language of your choice. And at this time, I will wait for each translator to translate in their respective languages before I begin. First, we'll start with Spanish.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Bienvenides, bienvenidas y bienvenidos al Gabinete de la Comunidad Virtual para el Consejo del Distrito 5. Antes de comenzar esta noche vamos a hacer algunos aspectos de logística. Contamos con varias interpretaciones para el CAC de esta noche. Para nuestros participantes que hablan español, yo estaré ofreciendo interpretación simultánea. También habrá quien interprete para ustedes en burmés y asimismo para Amharic. Si usted necesita de dichos servicios de interpretación, los podrá encontrar en las páginas de Facebook del alcalde, Mayor Hancock, o en la página de la ciudad de Denver, también en Facebook. En un par de minutitos, tan pronto todas las intérpretes nos hayamos presentado, usted podrá acceder también a los servicios haciendo clic en el botón que aparece en globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla en Zoom. Ahí encontrará el idioma que desee escuchar. Thank you, Glow.
Yeah, could you go ahead for the next translator? That is Burmese, and I believe that is Noor. Go ahead and translate. Okay, perhaps there's some technical difficulties there. We will get back to, oh, is that you, Noor?
Yes.
Please translate.
Hello, Chama na menuဖြစ်ပါတယ် Chama ဒီပမာစကားပြန်လောက်မှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဒီနေ့ဒီ Denver Human Service ကနေပြီးတော့ဒီ webinar live လောက်လွှင့်နေပါတယ်6နိုင်လောက်စမယ်ပြီးရင်ဒီမှာအားလုံးဟိုစကားပြန်ရှိတယ် Spanish ရှိတယ်ပြီးတော့ Burmese ရှိတယ်ပြီးတော့abstract လေးရှိတယ်ပြီးတော့ပမာစကားပြန်လို့ခြင်းနဲ့စိအဲ့ဒီမှာနေလို့ရပါတယ်ဒီလောက်ပါပဲကျေးဇူးပဲเนาะ
Okay, if that is all, thank you so much, Noor. And then finally, Amharic, we will have Ephraim translate there. Go ahead, Ephraim.
ስሜ ኤፍሬም እባላለሁ ያው በአማርኛ ቋንቋ ዛሬ ለማስተርጎም ነው የቀረብኩት የከንቲባው እንትን አለ ያዘጋጀው እቅድ አለ እና እሱን ለመነጋገር ዛሬ ቀርበናል እንግዲህ በተለያየ እንትን ቋንቋዎች ቀርቧል ማለት ነው የኛ ቋንቋ አማርኛ ስለሆነ ወደፊት የምትፈልጉት ነገር ካለ የቋንቋ ድርጅት ወይ ከፈለጋችሁ እናቀርብላችኋለን ማለት ነው እና ወደፊት ያው የሚደረገው ነገር ሁሉ እናደርጋለን ማለት ነው እና አመሰግናለሁ
Thank you very much there, Ephraim. Appreciate that. Now, if you need access to American Sign Language, you can access that service via the mayor's Facebook page or on Channel 8. And if you need automatic speech recognition, you have to go to the bottom of your Zoom screen and you'll see ASR there. And that, again, that service is going to be turned on. When you see that turned on, you can turn on that service there. So a little brief history about Cabinet in the community with Mayor Hancock. Of course, he began this with the main goal being to provide a way for constituents to speak directly to the mayor, as well as department heads and, other special guests who have, information, who have answers, who will know how to seek out answers if they don't have them tonight, or their staff will seek out those answers. But the overall goal is to get your questions answered. So all of the CICs this year in 2021 have been and will continue to be virtual, and that really is to ensure safety, and it also ensures that everyone gets the same amount of access so that we don't start and stop it in different ways, that just because we're getting better with the pandemic, we do know that we still have a pandemic, and so we're trying to be safe as well. So in previous years, the CIC was in person, but of course, due to the pandemic, that has come to a stop. So, and with that, I want to encourage all of my Zoom participants to drop your questions in the Q&A. Again, you see at the bottom of the Zoom, if you're joining us on Zoom, you'll see Q&A right there. Click on that and you can put your questions in. I want you to drop those questions in early, because at the end of every speaker, every presenter, once they conclude their presentations, I will ask as many questions as time will allow. And of course, if I don't get to your question, we do have a Q&A portion at the end with Mayor Hancock as well as Councilwoman Sawyer, and that usually is longer for more and more people. So if I don't get to ask it after each presenter tonight, I will then get to ask as many as I can during the Q&A for the mayor and the councilwoman. Here's something else. You can also go to the mayor's Facebook page, Mayor Hancock's Facebook page or Councilwoman Sawyer page, and drop your questions there. We do have staff who's going to bring those questions over. So again, I can ask them there. We're trying to accommodate as many forums. I believe we are streaming live as well on Mayor Hancock's YouTube channel, the city's YouTube channel, as well as Council District 5. So one last thing. Before I bring the mayor on screen, I want you to know that following the mayor and Councilwoman Sawyer will introduce a video of one of the many unsung immigrant Americans thriving in District 5. And with that, I want to welcome Denver Mayor Michael Hancock. Good evening, Mayor.
Gloria, thank you. And to all the District 5 residents who joined us, thank you very much. I also want to thank Councilwoman Amanda Sawyer for hosting us tonight. We are glad to be with you all in this great part of the city. I want to thank all the presenters tonight. You're going to hear some great reports on safety. You're going to hear from our Director of Public Health, who's done a phenomenal job in leading us through this pandemic and helping us to make good decisions for all of us to stay healthy and safe during this process. And you're also going to hear from our Director of Transportation Infrastructure. There may be a lot of public works and transportation questions you have. But Adam Fitz will be here to address you as well. And I'm also excited that our Chief Planner, Laura Aldrete, our Director of Planning, Community Planning and Development, will be here as well to begin to talk about, I'm sure, some zoning questions you may have. But all of the reports you're going to hear tonight come directly as a result of your calls to 311 to your City Council Representative Amanda Sawyer's office. We are trying to be responsive to the questions, or at least top of mind issues for the residents of District 5, but we're glad to be here. One of the issues you may want to talk about is it's been a busy 2 weeks in the city of Denver. My administration has been presenting to City Council the elements of our $1.49 billion budget proposal for 2022. Without question, we are all continue to work and dig out of the worst pandemic we've ever experienced in our lifetimes, and it certainly created, of course, an economic slowdown in the city of Denver. All of our plans in 2020 came to a halt. We saw $211 million of activity and revenue to the city stop, and we had to survive. But I gotta tell you, the fiscal discipline that we demonstrate as a city by making sure we have a rainy day fund or reserves at 15% or greater really helped us through this pandemic, as well as working very closely with the leaders of City Council and making real strategic, really good decisions, strategic decisions about the city going forward. The $1.49 billion budget, just want to give you a couple of highlights on what we have contained in that. You can go to denvergov.org and see the actual proposal itself. But we broke it down, and I'm going to break it down in several categories. One is to sustain our economic recovery. You see us make in this budget proposal a $200 million investment in infrastructure, capital infrastructure, continue to fund our mobility parks and our recreation and other city facilities. We also make a $25 million commitment to upscale our workforce development, particularly with regards to our young people in apprenticeships and construction training, make sure that they are able to harness skills that will keep them employable for the rest of their lives. And we are doing a unique program, one of the first, actually the first city in the country to take revenue that we are deriving from sales of marijuana, slicing off 1% of that, and saying we're going to set up a fund, an equity fund for women and minority entrepreneurs to start their businesses, to help sustain their businesses and help capitalize them, so we can begin to close those economic gaps and help give these vulnerable and oftentimes most challenged segments of our business community an opportunity to be capitalized or get support as they move forward. So I'm very excited about that. That's about a $1.7 million commitment this year, and we hope to sustain until we raise enough funds to reach $50 million in partnership with other banks and other partners. We also continue our investments in affordable housing, and of course, working on homeless resolution in the city of Denver. In this budget proposal, you see us make a $190 million investment to support housing access programs like down payment assistance and home ownership counseling, and hundreds more hotel and motel rooms to help those who are experiencing homelessness in our city. We also are funding housing vouchers to give people emergency shelter access as they need it. We're providing support for eviction assistance as well to try to stem the tide of evictions while people regain their stability and hopefully able to be more self-sufficient going forward. And then finally, we know that crime is an issue, and so in our city, and it is across the nation, but we make pretty sizable investments. We are finding our first responders, our police, our sheriff, and fire departments are all shorthanded, as well as our 911 call takers. And we've got to ramp up employment and staffing in all of those departments so that we can all face this challenge of rising crime in our city. And so we make a sizable investment in that. Our budget for 2022 is really a key tool to driving the city's recovery out of this pandemic. So it's going to be critically important that we hit the ground running in 2022 and make sure we're able to maintain the momentum that we've created coming out of this thing in 2021. So with that, we look forward to the conversation tonight and answering your questions and engaging and hearing more of your thoughts. But I'm also excited to bring up your City Council representative for District 5, the Honorable Amanda Sawyer. Councilwoman, welcome and thank you. I shouldn't say welcome to you. You're hosting me. Thank you for hosting us.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Sawyer, Denver City Councilwoman for District 5. And before we get started, I want to just say a huge thank you to the mayor's office, to my council staff, to our city staff. There's a lot of hard work that goes into putting on an event like this. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity for us to come together tonight and have this District 5 cabinet in the community. We all know the challenges that face our neighborhoods, and tonight we'll hear directly from representatives of several city agencies about the city's solutions to some of these issues. Before we get started, I know we all agree we live in an extraordinary place, and District 5 is particularly special because of the community of involvement that we have here. So speaking of that community involvement, we would love for everyone to sign up to join us for Fall Parks Cleanup Day, which is Sunday, October 10th at 8:30 a.m. It's a twice-a-year event that's become a District 5 tradition. I hope you'll take the time to volunteer. And you can do it at bit.ly/fallparkscleanup2021. As always, feel free to reach out to our office if there's anything we can do to assist you, or with follow-up questions this evening as well. And with that, I want to recognize our featured I Am Denver resident, Beto Mohardin. From living on the streets to bringing international designers to Denver's fashionistas, Beto proves we can all be proud of our past and embrace our future. Beto owns a popular salon over on East Colfax. So I'm going to let you hear his story in his own words with this I Am Denver video.
And I'm an artist, designer, and I love cooking. Well, you know, I've been here for 25 years, the best years of my life, I can say. And, you know, I moved here because I was going through a very rough time in my life where I needed it to find my own world, my own space. I'm a survivor of physical, sexual, and mentally abuse. You have two options. Either you use it for your benefit in a positive way, what is happening to you, or sometimes you don't survive. I'm blessed to be one of those teenagers that survive and decide to find another world.
Hey.
My first year, I was a homeless for 3 months. And then, you know, thank God, right away I tried to apply for a scholarship at Emily Griffith. And that's how I got into the hair. So, you know, for me, I saw what was going on wrong at the time. And I said, well, I have the capacity, the experience by the best. Why not bring the best to the ones that they're not having the best? I always think about quantity. Give it less expensive. Give other people the choices that they can come and look beautiful. You don't have to pay a lot of money to look beautiful. You know what I mean? Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming tonight. It means a lot for us, all of us that we're behind stage in the whole community in the state of Colorado to promote education, diversity, and culture. By creating Latin Fashion Week was to create an event that will be really inclusive and bring designers from other countries that they're part of our heritage. We are all. For me, that's what Latino means. We are all, a little bit of everything.
That is excellent. Thank you so much to Councilwoman Sawyer, to Mayor Hancock, of course, and congratulations to really the I Am Denver team for putting in all the work. I know a lot of times, you know, you add all this stuff in for all these different districts. So thank you to Rowena and her team. I Am Denver for the I Am Denver / City Council tribute to District 5. Now, before I introduce our first presenter tonight, I want to remind you to put your questions in the Q&A on Zoom. And if you're on Facebook, you can put them there. They will bring them over. All of these places where we have accessibility, we want to make sure that you get ample opportunity to have your questions asked tonight. At the conclusion of each presenter, every speaker, I will ask as many relevant questions as time will allow. I know that I will not get through all of them, but we do have time at the end of the program for Councilwoman Sawyer as well as for Mayor Hancock to go ahead and answer some of those questions, as well as the department heads. They always stick around to make sure that you have accessibility and can get as many questions answered as possible. So your first speaker tonight is Executive Director of the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment. That would be Bob McDonald, who will be followed by Chief Payson. And so with that, I will say, Bob, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to give you an update here. I am going to go ahead and share my screen to give you an update on where we are. Before I do that, I just want to thank everyone. I've said this so many times. There is no one local public health department in the country, or that for that matter, the world, that can tackle a pandemic on their own. It takes every individual to comply with public health orders and guidance and to get vaccinated. That's the quickest way to get out of this pandemic. We are in a good path here. I'm looking forward to sharing some information with you tonight and answering any questions you might have. So with that, I'm going to jump in and start where I always do, and that's with what's referred to as the epidemiological curve for the pandemic, which demonstrates, or get a lot of this, is why are we issuing a mandate for vaccines right now? When you take a look at the curve over on the far right here, you can see that we have an average case rate of about 21 cases per 100,000 in Denver. Now take a look at the same time last year in August, right about here, okay? We have more cases now than we did last year at the same time, with 70% of the population being vaccinated. So we know that the current respiratory viruses do better in the wintertime. We saw a huge spike in the fall. We're moving into the fall. So the mandate now is to prepare for that so that we don't see that huge spike that we saw last year at the same time. With respect to vaccination uptake and the rate, you can see in Denver, we're doing very well at about 82% of the population being vaccinated. I appreciate that again for all of you who've done that. If you haven't done that yet, please do so at your earliest convenience. It's important to get everybody vaccinated. That's how we get out of the pandemic. You can see that we're doing a little bit better than the state, a little bit better than the US population. But again, it may not be enough to stem that fall spike that we saw last year. You can get the vaccine at pharmacies, your primary care physician, even places like Costco and Sam's Club. It's widely available, very effective and very safe. Hundreds of millions of people have gotten these vaccines with little incident. If you are not vaccinated, you are at much greater risk for a severe problem than you are by getting these vaccines. So please reach out, get the information, do the research that you need to feel comfortable getting that vaccine if you haven't been vaccinated yet. I already spoke to why the vaccine now and why the mandate now. The Delta variant is the most infectious variant that we've seen from the beginning of the pandemic. So again, 70 to 80% of the population being vaccinated may not be enough as we move into the winter months. I'm often asked, why are we doing this if hospitals aren't overwhelmed? And my response is always the same. It's best not to wait until they are. The best way to make sure that our hospitals are not overwhelmed, and remember, hospitals are not just dealing with COVID respiratory illness. There's also something called RSV, which is a common respiratory illness. Everybody's very familiar with the flu. All of those things are going to hit as we move into the fall. So it's really important to get vaccinated so that our hospitals don't become overwhelmed. Also remember this, if there's one thing that you remember from the update, we have to stop thinking about the vaccine, that we need to take the vaccine just to protect ourselves. That is absolutely not true. We all need to get vaccinated to protect everyone else. The more people that are unvaccinated, the more breakthrough cases we can have, meaning that unvaccinated people can actually infect vaccinated people. If you're vaccinated, you're largely protected from severe illness, but we can have breakthrough cases if we don't. The more unvaccinated people we have, the more breakthrough cases we could have. So it's very important that everybody gets it, not just to protect themselves, but to protect everybody else in the community. The mandate that rolled out on August 8th covers all city employees. We're doing very well there, reaching that close to 95%. Got a couple of days left for everybody to download their information to make sure that all city employees are in compliance. And this mandate focuses on high-risk occupations and high-risk settings. So your primary care physician that's a high-risk occupation. Providing care to an individual, but the scheduler that sets his or her appointments, that may not be a high-risk occupation, but that's in a high-risk setting in a primary care physician's office. So everybody in that office would have to be vaccinated. What you can do to help us out is to ask anyone providing care for you, if they're vaccinated. You have a right to ask that. I would encourage you to ask that, not just to protect yourselves, but that gets the information out. So if you're going to the dentist, going to your primary care physician, going to get some massage therapy or physical therapy or acupuncture, or even if you have somebody come into your home to provide a home health care, they are required to be vaccinated. So it's okay for you to ask. You have a right to ask for your own protection. And again, asking gets that information out to those that may not be aware that they fall into a category that requires them to get vaccinated. The vaccines, these vaccines, I keep hearing that they're experimental. That is absolutely not true. In the history of vaccines, there has been no vaccine, mandated or otherwise, that has been through more review than the COVID-19 vaccines, far more review than many of the vaccines we've already had. They're very safe, effective. Pfizer is fully approved. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are also approved for emergency use, but they're soon to be fully approved by the FDA. So please get out and get vaccinated to protect yourself and your loved ones in the community. If you have any questions about the vaccines, the efficacy, where you can go to get information, anything about breakthrough cases or anything like that, please reach out to our website, call 311. They'll connect you to our staff here in DDPHE. We'll be happy to get you those answers. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Glo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. You know, there are questions, of course, one of which is, this one is coming in from Brandy Mayer. She says, oh goodness, let me go back up to the bottom. She says, how is this being the numbers in relation to certain races, the COVID numbers, new COVID rates for whites, Hispanics, and Blacks in Denver? What are the numbers as it relates to those ethnic groups and with the Delta variant as well?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's a great question. You know, from the beginning, Denver has not been alone in this, that we've seen some disparate outcomes and impacts with underserved communities, people of color, just harsher impacts with them and the pandemic. And now vaccine uptake is a little bit less in those communities. We are doing everything we can to reach out to undervaccinated communities to address concerns, answer any questions they might have. I am happy to report that we are seeing more uptake now in communities of color and some of our underserved communities throughout Denver. So we still have some more work to do there, but numbers in terms of vaccine uptake is improving across the board. So I appreciate the question.
Absolutely. There is one more question for you, Bob. This is dealing more so with the protocol. When you have been vaccinated and you then are notified that you have been around people who have COVID, do you quarantine? Do you not quarantine? You take a test? How long? What's the protocol there?
Yeah, excellent question. If a person is vaccinated and it comes to their attention that they have been in close contact with somebody who has COVID-19, unvaccinated or not, you do not need to quarantine. If you are vaccinated, you are largely protected, okay? Especially from severe illness and hospitalization. That doesn't mean you couldn't contract COVID-19. That's possible. That's what's referred to as a breakthrough case. That's rare. And so we would ask that if a person is vaccinated and exposed to somebody who had COVID-19, you can still go to work, still do the things that you would normally do because you're vaccinated. Best to wear a face covering though, especially when you're in an indoor setting. Wear a face covering for the first few days. Within 3 to 5 days of your exposure, go ahead and get a test. If you test negative, then you're okay to take the face covering off, but you do not need to quarantine if you're vaccinated.
Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the stats and information. It constantly changes. So it's a big help to be able to have you come on and share, not just with, you know, the overall community, but of course in each independent district. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
You are very welcome. I do believe, I want to give you one little housekeeping note. I know that there has been a switch up in the interpreters. I believe the Amharic interpreter was on the Burmese and vice versa on those channels. And so I believe they have that worked out. I am going to continue with the program so we can keep everything on track right now. So if you are listening in one of those languages, please rest assured we now should have that worked out in the back of the house there. So next up after Bob is Denver Police Chief Paul Payson. And Chief, take it away.
Hello, thank you. I certainly want to thank the constituents of Council District 5. It's an honor to be able to be with you tonight and give a brief update of the crime challenges that we are facing in the city. And then we also have the district commanders that cover Council District 5 that will talk more specifically about some of the challenges or questions you might have. It's not a secret that we are facing some significant crime challenges in our city, as we are across the metro area and across the country. When we're talking about crime, there really are 5 specific crime categories that are driving the increase. Unfortunately, homicide is one of those. Shootings are the second. Burglaries, auto thefts, and car break-ins. Those are the 5 crime categories that are driving our increase in crime here in the city. We are starting to see some progress with some of these areas, and we certainly have additional work to do in order to keep the people of Denver safe. What are we doing about it? You may have heard about our initiative to address the 5 most violent locations where most of the shootings, nearly 50% of our shootings were taking place, and 26% of our homicides, the 5 hotspots in our collaborative crime prevention initiative to address that. We are seeing some good progress in many of those areas, and we are going to continue to work with our community, with other city agencies, with faith-based groups and nonprofits to address these areas. Now, what can you do? What can you do to help us? First and foremost is get involved. We're asking you to help us in increasing the safety within our city. And there are very effective tools like Neighborhood Watch that work, like helping us in our hotspots, helping us with cleanups, or helping us with outreach in these particular areas so we can work together to address these issues. It's pretty simple. An engaged community is a strong community, and a strong community is a safe community. So the fact that you are here participating in cabinet in the community, and we'd ask that that continue, and us working together is how we can address these issues. I'm going to hit pause right there, and I'm going to introduce the commander of Police District 2. This would be the northern part of Council District 5, Commander Kathy Bancroft.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Bancroft. I'm the district commander for District 2. So our southern area of East Colfax is the area that we have with Councilwoman Sawyer. As the chief said, we have seen a dramatic rise in some of our areas, especially along East Colfax.
Kathy, can you bring your camera down a little? We're just seeing the top of your head. Can you bring your camera? Yeah, just there you go. There you go. Thank you.
So we saw a dramatic rise in some of the areas that we have along East Colfax, and we addressed it by precision policing and looking at one of our hotspots, that being one of ours, looking at all the data that we saw and the rise in crime and seeing what we can do about it, targeting and addressing those areas where we saw the violence coming up. So we addressed the motels on East Colfax, the drug dealing along East Colfax, and then came in back with the community to build up that area with community policing ideas, working with the neighborhood organizations and the East Colfax Collective and the Fax Partnership. So that is the East Colfax side. The rest of the areas around, we're seeing a dramatic rise in some of the property crimes, and Rick and I work together along our borders. So I'll have Rick talk a little bit about the property crimes that we're seeing along his side of the area.
We'll shift here. That's why we had an uneven camera there. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate being involved in this great event. And thank you, Councilwoman Sawyer. Great partnership with the council office from both districts to try and work towards safety in the community. In District 3, kind of the primary driver that we're seeing in District 3 is kind of the southern end of the council district, most of the areas south of 6th Avenue and all of Lowry. And those increases in property crime are mainly driven by vehicle crime. Basically, the conditions created by the virus and the pandemic kind of created a perfect storm for these property crimes, specifically vehicle crimes, to increase. Economic downturns typically result in increased property crime. And unique to this pandemic is the shutdowns, where a lot of cars were just sitting in neighborhoods for long periods of time because people were on those shutdowns. So a lot of kind of target-rich environments. So we saw huge spikes in vehicle crime. And the good news is that kind of starting after the early winter, January, February, March, we've kind of seen things normalize a bit. If you look at our year-to-date numbers on the city's websites, you'll see very high increases, but those are really driven by the first 3 months of the year. We just recently did a look at the summer months of June, July, and August, and we are up slightly. I think some of those kind of impacts are still being felt, but it's only about 3.7% in our district. And I think we see some similar numbers in other districts. So we're hopeful that we're getting back to a better state. And as the chief mentioned, I mean, really the safest communities are those that are connected and engaged. So I cannot push our Neighborhood Watch program enough. It's a program where we can help the community connect, to watch out for each other, provide some training on how that looks, and then provide information to you as things pop up, so we can share information and collaborate as we try to address these crime issues. So please, 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 and I believe our contact information will be a part of the end of the presentation. Let us know if you're interested. We'll get you in touch with your community resource officer who can help facilitate those programs. So that's my property crime presentation. I don't know if we're at the point where we want to take questions or if there's anything else.
Well, if Chief, you tell me we do want to take questions, I have them for you. Cool. I see you saying yes, hello. Let's get it on. So this one is for the chief. This is coming in from Judith Jung. She says, would the chief please address where geographically the top 5 hotspots are? And should these neighborhoods outside of these hotspots expect to not have issues addressed? Chief.
Judith, excellent question, and we really appreciate you asking. We address crime in all of Denver's 78 neighborhoods. What we have seen is an increase in violent crime in 5 areas. One of those areas does cover Council District 5. That's along East Colfax, essentially from Syracuse to Yosemite. And as Commander Bancroft pointed out, we are starting to see some success in addressing these issues. The other hotspots include the Colfax and Broadway that kind of leads over to lower downtown Ballpark neighborhood, also Alameda and Federal, MLK and Hawley, and then 47th and Peoria. We want to stress that we are working in a collaborative way with other city agencies to address those underlying causal factors that are driving the violent crime, the shootings and the homicides in those 5 areas. We are also addressing these property crimes as well as any other issue that comes up in any and all of the 78 neighborhoods that make up Denver, that it is not our sole and only focus on the hotspots. We are making sure that this is an and, that we are doing both, that we're focusing on our community collaborative crime prevention initiative, as well as the needs of the people of Denver, regardless of where they live, work, or play.
Chief, one last question. There are more, but I'm going to have to save the other ones for the commanders towards the end. But this question for you, this is coming in from Craig Arfston on Zoom. Who is committing the property crime? And then the question mark is urban campers, question mark, who is this?
So, we really look at the causal factors. We really look for repeat offenders as well. That way we can identify what those issues are. And in some cases, it is connect them to case management. right? There are certain crime types that it is most effective to connect an individual to a case manager to prevent future crime. In others, it certainly is on the accountability side of things and the traditional criminal justice system. So when we are talking about particular crimes or particular areas, that's part of our daily and weekly analysis, as the commanders indicated, studying the data, finding out who's involved in these, and then working to disrupt those property crimes. And in some cases, it's additional support, and in other cases, it is the accountability side.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chief. Appreciate that. Now I'd like to introduce you to some of the hard work that is taking place at Denver Human Services, and that is going to be followed by the Executive Director of the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Adam Phipps. But first, let's hear from Denver Human Services.
Hola, mi nombre es Victoria Aguilar con el Departamento de Servicios Humanos en Denver, con un mensaje muy importante para nuestra comunidad inmigrante en Denver. Entendemos que debido a legislación federal pasada y mala información que ha circulado, quizás usted tenga miedo de acceder a nuestros servicios vitales. Queremos asegurarle que estamos aquí para ayudarle y apoyarle para que su familia esté saludable, seguro y conectado a recursos. Le animamos a que visite nuestro sitio de web, donde podrá aplicar para beneficios y servicios vitales, y nuestros trabajadores de caso están disponibles para ayudarle. Nosotros y nuestros aliados valoramos lo importante que es usted para nuestra comunidad.
Thank you so much to Denver Human Services. Now, as promised, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, that is going to be the Executive Director, Mr. Adam Phipps. Hello, Adam.
Hello, everybody, and good evening. And thank you, Councilwoman Sawyer, for hosting us tonight. And thank you for our people of District 5 for tuning in tonight. So my name is Adam Phipps. I'm the Interim Executive Director for the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about a handful of traffic calming projects that we have going on within the district. And really what traffic calming means is safety. How do we ease traffic congestion? How do we reduce traffic speed? And how do we ensure that pedestrians can move across our city, and specifically District 5, safely? So with that, we'll jump in and highlight a few of the projects that we have going. First is our traffic study at 13th and 14th Avenue. So 13th and 14th really extends in the core of Denver, all the way from Broadway and even further west, but all the way to our city boundary at Yosemite. In that study, we found 21 opportunities for improvements, 9 of which are within District 5. And so you can see 5 cross streets identified here, some of those cross streets having multiple improvements that will be rolling out as design finalizes later this year. We'll be rolling out early spring. So these will be immediate fixes, pedestrian refuges, painted turning bulb outs, everything that makes access to and crossing these streets safer. Next slide, please. Next, talk a little bit about Niagara and Lowry. We recently completed a study to understand whether or not some dedicated pedestrian crossing tools were warranted. And the answer was yes, yes, they are. And so what you'll see is a rapid flashing beacon. This is a pedestrian activated crosswalk with warning beacons that informs traffic to stop for the pedestrian. That's scheduled for early 2022 as well. So again, another early implementation that we have ahead of us. We're also currently studying Newport and Lowry, just one block over, to understand if the improvements at Niagara and Lowry will suffice, or if we need to look at additional improvements around in the immediate vicinity as well. Left turn signals at 6th Avenue in Quebec. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with that intersection, and we're studying right now. Would dedicated turn signals help traffic move more freely? Would it allow the pedestrian and bike access to move more safely? And we expect for that signal study to be complete early next year. And depending on the results, we'd look at implementation following that nearly immediately after. Next, look a little bit back at the Newport and Alameda area, and we're doing another traffic signal evaluation there. What we determined in that study, as it was a bit ahead of the project that we just identified before this, is that yes, absolutely, improvements are needed. We're going to see striped crosswalk, you're going to see left turn striping, pedestrian and wayfinding signage, and some specialized signal timing. We recognize the needs of that community and specific access to the school right there that you see in the top left-hand corner of the picture. We want to make sure that all in the community can access this. And so we'll see these signal improvements coming early 22 as well. And then finally, I want to highlight 8th Avenue. And I can't highlight this project without, again, expressing a thank you to Councilwoman Sawyer. This is actually a study that's being led by the council office itself, not only with time and resources, but with the funding necessary to do and perform this study. Now, Dottie staff is engaged in assisting to ensure that we have the appropriate technical expertise and are evaluating the right information. But what we're looking at is some community involvement meetings coming up. One on October 19 to discuss some traffic data collection. This is 8th Avenue for a significant portion of the district. And then again, a meeting on November 16th to discuss the traffic calming recommendations. That will be similar to some of those conclusions that were highlighted on the previous projects. Dedicated pedestrian crossings, bulb outs, defined crossing protection, all of those types of safety improvements that we see across our city are coming to District 5. And one other item I just want to emphasize is, as the mayor introed us, this new 2022 budget has nearly $200 million of capital investment in the community. And although we just highlighted 5 projects for you this evening, we have a lot more investment coming across the entire city, District 5 included, here in the coming years. And so this is just a small sample of what we're going to see ahead. And with that, Glo, that concludes the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adam. One is coming in from an individual, I believe it was brought over. Actually, it's on Zoom. Sidewalks, wheelchair accessible. All of these areas are really bad, according to Brandy Majors. What is being done to address that, to help those individuals get around our city?
Certainly. So sidewalks are an integral part of how we move about our community. And we heard Chief Payson talk about a connected and engaged community. Well, you need the infrastructure to be able to connect, and you need the infrastructure to be able to engage. So we have a number of different mobility programs, whether it's sidewalk specific, bike specific, transit oriented, to ensure that we have those connections. And so we'll have a big update coming to City Council in October to talk about our strategy for how we improve sidewalks across the city. But certainly if there's a specific area where accessibility is a challenge, or just simply navigation is hard, please reach out to 311 and let us know. We can get inspectors out there and make sure that the appropriate attention is given to get the improvement in place.
Well, honey, ask and ye shall receive. Check this out. This is coming in from Carla McConnell. She said, we need continuous detached sidewalks on 6th Avenue in Quebec to Colorado. Are you requiring installation with each new home, meaning you, Dottie, such as the Monaco and 6th corner? What's the protocol there?
Yeah, certainly. So a very good question. So as we've seen a lot of development in our city over the last many years, anytime a developer comes in, whether that be for a commercial property, whether that be for a residential property, we absolutely require them to put sidewalks in. And the point of that question I really want to highlight is continuous sidewalks. When it comes to transportation, the key is connected mobility, and that's what the continuous sidewalk will provide. And so yes, absolutely, we require that. We have very high standards for what a high comfort sidewalk looks like, and emphasize those as well.
Okay, that is good. So continuous sidewalk, just to be clear, does that have the ramp that moms can, with the strollers, and get off of and then go back up on the other side?
Absolutely, and that's our ADA accessible ramps. And we here in Dottie go throughout the city and do thousands of ramp replacements every year to ensure that every single ramp within the city and county of Denver is accessible to anyone with any mobility impairment.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Next up, we have a very special lady. Her name is Laura Aldrete. She is the executive director of CPD, which stands for Community Planning and Development, which goes hand in hand really with the Department of Transportation in many ways. So go ahead and take it away, Laura. Oh, but before you do, following her presentation, I want to then get back into the mayor and Councilwoman Sawyer to finish it up. Go ahead, Laura.
All right, thank you. Are you all able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I'm trying to transition it over to a full screen. How's that? You see it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good evening, and thank you, District 5, and thank you, Councilwoman Sawyer, for inviting us this evening. My name is Laura Aldrete. I'm the Executive Director of Community Planning and Development. And I have with me also my subject matter expert, Kurt Upton, who's our Principal City Planner. So as questions emerge, either I will field them or Kurt will help me out as well. This evening, we're going to talk about one of our neighborhood area plans that is coming up that will be affecting a portion of District 5, as well as Councilwoman Sawyer asked us to touch on a number of development projects that are happening in your neighborhood. And then lastly, hopefully we'll have time for a couple of questions as there have been for the other guests as well. So just a quick reminder of what's community planning and development. We call ourselves CPD. What we do is really this across the spectrum that you see here, everything from neighborhood plans down to construction inspections and everything in between. And I think for me, the important part is, and for my department, is that we do all of this through the lens of the community voice, right? That is one of the most important elements that we use in the work that we do. So talking about the Near Southeast Neighborhood Planning Initiative, this affects the neighborhoods of Washington, Virginia Vale, Virginia Village, Indian Creek, Goldsmith, University Hills, north of Yale Avenue. If you live in one of these neighborhoods, you may have seen us out asking residents what they like or dislike about your neighborhoods, what you want to see in the future. Over the next year and a half, we will be working with residents, with you all, to develop long-term community visions that align with existing citywide goals around equity, mobility, and sustainability. And those were set as part of Blueprint Denver and the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2019. The community vision will eventually be called the Near Southeast Area Plan and will guide city decision-making in these neighborhoods for years to come. So we encourage you to check out the website that's identified here for Near Southeast Plan to get, you can sign up for email updates, you can share input on a survey, you can find out when upcoming public events are. So also want to touch on a plan that probably many of you were involved in that was adopted in 2020, which is the East Area Plan. It's formally adopted, as I said, about a year ago. And the plan covers, was a 3-year effort working with residents in East Colfax, Hale, Montclair, and South Park Hill. So 1 year later, we've already made headway on implementing the community's recommendations. In terms of anti-displacement strategies, we're working on policy changes that support a resident priority program to give existing residents priority for affordable housing units in their neighborhood, a TIF advisory committee, new affordable housing requirements, and an adaptive reuse program to retain our small businesses along East Colfax. In terms of mobility, we're working to create a safe crossings at about 20 intersections. Of course, this is working with our colleagues in Dottie. So we've got 20 intersections identified along 13th and 14th Street, safe crossings and protected bike lane along 17th Avenue from Colorado to Yosemite, and adding pedestrian and transit improvements along Quebec Street. And then, of course, we've been working with council members Sawyer and Herndon on rezoning to allow homeowners in East Colfax to add accessory dwelling units to their properties. So let's talk a little bit about developments that are in your neighborhood, in your area. The first is 9th and Colorado, as you, I'm sure, recall, is a redevelopment of a 26-acre site that used to house the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center. That is being led by Continuum Partners, who is the developer for the master developer for that redevelopment. As you know, the University of Colorado had outgrown its space many years ago and relocated to the Anschutz Medical Campus now in Aurora. So when complete, of course, there are things already up, such as Postino, which I enjoy on occasion, as well as the movie theater and a number of offices and businesses located there. Ultimately, it will house 1,100 new homes, dozens, additional shops and restaurants and public art, some new green public green spaces identified there, as well as public plazas and a restored street and sidewalk network that had been lost as the campus had expanded out through the site. Next, I want to talk about Leetsdale and Holly. This is actually two projects that are happening here. The first one as identified here, 5301 Leetsdale Drive, is a 5-acre site fronting onto Leetsdale and Holly. Fronting onto Leetsdale. It's a redevelopment proposal was initially submitted for a 3-story building with about 270 apartment homes. The developer, who is Embray Partners, held community information meetings in May and June of just this past summer. And at a minimum, we expect there to be a need for transportation improvements along Leetsdale, including a wider sidewalk and tree lawn areas. Then the South Holly, the 525 South Holly project, is a 3-story assisted living facility with about 200 living spaces. We've reviewed the project's building plans to ensure that they meet Denver's building and zoning codes, including the green building ordinance. So things such as solar panels, a cool roof, and green space on the ground. And then lastly, I want to talk about the Leetsdale and Mississippi project. It is a proposed redevelopment of approximately a combination of buildings that are between 3 and 5 stories on 2 different parcels. The developer has submitted for a concept for about 220 apartments across 3 buildings, but has not yet submitted any formal plans to the city to consider for review. When that happens, our review will focus on ensuring that the site has sufficient infrastructure, meets our requirements for green building, and delivers mixed income housing with at least 15% of the homes for people making 80% or less of the area's median income. The developer, MGL, has also agreed to a good neighbor agreement. And those are, that good neighbor agreement is publicly available on the proposed rezoning website through our community planning and development website. So just, I've provided a lot of information, and this information is all public. And so I want to point you to 3 different sources that that you all have on the internet. The first one is really for site development plans. So this is for all new commercial and multifamily developments that are under city review now, or that have been approved in the past. And there's layers that you can turn on and off, so you can see what's new, what has been approved or built in the past. Second, I want to point out the e-permits. So if you have questions about building or zoning permits that are happening on developments that are happening in your neighborhood, all permits are now submitted and issued electronically. And so this is a public record for you to go through and sort. You can sort the database by address. Lastly, if you have a question about, say, what is my zoning? You can go to the development services, find out what your zoning is, who your neighborhood inspectors are, and gather information there. And with that, I will stop.
Thank you so very much, Laura Aldrete. CPD, we really appreciate all of your efforts. It is that time of the program now, Captain in the Community. You get to ask your questions to the mayor and Councilwoman Sawyer and any of the presenters here tonight. So if you haven't already put your questions in the Q&A, please do so. That's right at the bottom of your screen if you're joining us on Zoom. And there are also questions that have been brought over from the mayor's Facebook page. And with that, I am going to start the first question for Mayor Hancock. This is from Craig. He says, why does Denver believe more housing is the solution to ending urban camping when it's clear the root cause of urban camping is drug addiction, mental illness, and not lack of affordable housing? Mayor?
Hey, first of all, I appreciate the question, but the premise is wrong. We don't believe more housing is the cure for urban camping. There's a lot of reasons why we are dealing with individuals who are sheltered on the streets, and a lot that you named there are absolutely on target. We believe more housing is needed for people who are experiencing homelessness in general, period. So our philosophy is housing first, and then wrap individuals and make sure they have access to the intensive services they need to regain stability in their lives, whatever that may mean. But for every person who's on our streets, there is a unique and tailored response that is required to help move them to greater stability.
Thank you so much, Mayor Hancock. This one is for, actually it's a combination. It is for Dottie as well as for Councilwoman Sawyer. What is the status of the bus rapid transit project on Colfax Avenue?
Well, Glow, this is Adam Phipps. I'm certainly happy to jump in here because it's an exciting advancement. So the Colfax Bus Rapid Transit is moving full steam ahead. No pun intended there. We just made a big announcement with our partners of RTD that we entered into the project development phase. We're currently going through the NEPA, which is the National Environmental Protection Act, the environmental clearance and the preliminary engineering. We expect to submit for a federal grant program here in about a year. And we're actually looking at having service up and running within the next 4 to 5 years. So some significant milestones on significant progress. And I really have to start by thanking District 5 community as well as the entire community of Denver for voting yes on the Elevate Denver bond program in 2017 that gave us that foundational funding to get this project moving full steam.
Councilwoman Sawyer, you want to add anything?
I don't think I could say it any better than Adam already did, but thanks.
You are very welcome. You're very welcome. There is other questions here. This deals with, actually, it is for Chief Payson. It says, Chief Payson, why is it that you feel you are so understaffed when there are over 10 police on any given sweep? Also, the hotspots that were so allegedly crime-filled, can you explain why there is more crime since you started? You address that premise, Chief, and take it away.
Glow, thank you very much. And I think we've talked about this a little bit earlier. We're negatively impacted by the global pandemic that impacted our economy. The city of Denver had to make significant cuts, $220 million. Every agency in the city had to make some very tough decisions. And for us, that meant that 97 police officers did not get hired in 2020. Right now, we certainly could use those 97 officers to help us address these significant crime challenges that we are facing. However, the mayor and city council have been very committed to helping us rebound. We need to rebound as a city so we can restore that vibrance that we've had pre-pandemic. And safety is a big part of that. Our resources have been stretched thin, but working together, which both the mayor and city council have demonstrated, gets us to where we need to be. As far as the crime in the hotspot, these are where the shootings were recorded. This is where the homicides were recorded. These are the crimes that create the most harm in our society. And that is why we had been very focused and in a very collaborative way to address that. But we're not by any means losing sight of any other neighborhood within our community. And we're asking for your help to address these issues and get us back to where we need to be, a very safe city moving forward.
Thank you so much, Chief. Appreciate that. This one for Councilwoman Sawyer. Any updates on the old VA facility near 9th in Colorado? that development there? Any updates?
It's a great question.
Mayor, please chime in. I can tell you both were jumping.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to. It's a great question.
No.
The federal government is working on putting it up for sale. So go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I was just going to, you said it, you know, I'll just say this from between us and the folks in Denver, there is not a more challenging process than disposition of property owned by the federal government. The General Services Department, their customers are the federal agencies, and that's where they have to start. So that's all to say that we are in a holding pattern, as Councilwoman Sawyer has alluded to find out if any agencies want to grab a hold of it. But you can rest assured that Councilwoman Sawyer and my administration are focused on getting that property in the right hands of folks here in Denver, so we can repurpose it or have the hospital use it for their expanded services.
Thank you so much to both of you. This one is for you, Mayor Hancock. This is coming in from your Facebook page. Alan says, Mayor, you could build $1 billion in housing to help the homeless, but you will never eliminate illegal camping until you enforce the camping ban. When will you enforce the camping ban? Can you please address that, Ms. Noma?
So rest assured, we are enforcing the camping ban, but what most people don't know in Denver is that we are also under court orders that really prescribe how we enforce the camping ban. Shortly after implementing camping ban, we were sued, and there are some very prescribed procedures that we have to follow in order to, as we execute the camping ban. We are doing a couple things to try to do some interim steps or do better and be more effective in the interim periods before something becomes an encampment. And City Council has authorized budgeting, or at least working to authorize budgeting for 2022. We will do it in 2021, but we're going to roll out what we call a street enforcement team. The goal is to get those individuals who set up tents before we have other tents massatized next to them. What we typically see, the pattern is 1 or 2 tents set up, and then if you don't go in and abate them and try to connect them with services or move them along, then the next day you'll see 4 tents and then 6 tents and 8 tents and so on and so forth. And now we're under the court the order that we have to follow the 7-day posting period. So we do enforce the law. We are following the court decree that we have, an agreement that we have with the courts. But we're going to do a better job, or try to do a better job with their new civilian street enforcement teams of getting ahead of the development of actual encampments.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. I know that is a lot for people to get, but we can't say it enough. I do have one for Councilwoman Sawyer, and it deals with a lot of these questions that I'm seeing that deal with safety. There's a lot of those questions. My understanding, you have a big meeting that's coming up that I think this is a perfect time to let everyone in attendance know about.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I have to give a huge shout out to our Department of Safety. My 2 commanders are absolutely fantastic partners, and we have been working really, really hard to try and invest in our community and bring our community together. So I've just, again, got to remind everyone, no one does neighborhood watch better, safer, more properly than the District 3 Police Department. So if you join us, for one of their neighborhood watch presentations, I can't stress it enough. I also worked with Commander Bancroft in District 2 to secure some grant funding for a community policing program from Monaco to Yosemite along East Colfax in hopes of helping to support that community that has been so affected by crime, particularly violent crime. And so we're going to have a community meeting that's going to talk about, I know the mayor has worked with DDPHE to expand our STAR program, which is non-police response, mental health care responders, which is also going to go into effect in East Colfax coming up. And we've got our co-responder program, which we've expanded as well, which includes caseworkers for high resource utilizers. So there is a number of different things that are coming to District 5, particularly to the northern part. And it's going to be a really, really important change in the way we police up there. So please join us for community meeting where we're going to talk about this. It is going to be in Tuesday, October, I believe it's the 12th. But it's going to be 7 to 8:30 p.m. and we're going to have a number of people, the experts on talking to us about what exactly is going to be those changes, how it's going to be able to affect our community. Yep, it is Tuesday the 12th at 7 p.m. So please join us for that.
Excellent. And that is going to be on your social media for the district so people can find it there as well.
That's right. It's there. And we always stream everything live. So, you know, if you just go to our Facebook page, you can see it streamed there.
Good. Excellent. Thank you so much. This next question, and probably our final one before I kick back to the mayor to close us out tonight, is for Laura Aldrete as well as for Adam. It says, what is your vision, Ms. Aldrete, for today, not for the year 2040? Traffic is out of control. Zoning rules and regulations are not effectively being enforced. What do you advocate for Denver's future? And so I'm sure you and Adam can address that jointly.
Sure, I'll start, and then Adam will chime in. I think the vision where we need to head is to put the pedestrian first. It means we need to think differently about when we talk about public right-of-way. We have just come to a place where we assume that means the automobile, but I think we need to remember the public in public right-of-way and think about how do we enhance that space for pedestrians. And there's no reason why they can't all get along in that space together. It just means the prioritization shift needs to happen to emphasize pedestrians and bicycles, and then transit, and then single occupancy vehicles. Different streets function differently. So how do we think about residential streets even more so in that way? And then recognizing that there are some commercial arterials that need to function more heavily with for the automobile. Okay. Adam, you want to add on, or?
Yeah, thank you, Laura, and thanks, Chloe. I'll jump in with just a little bit of addition to what Laura provided. The answer is our mobility action plan, and we're making some good progress towards it. We're over $1 billion towards the $2 billion overall plan, but the goal here is mode shift, is that we have to get out of the idea that we are a single occupancy vehicle city. We need to develop paths for everyone to safely move across our city, whether that be bikes, pedestrian, transit, and make that ease just as it is for a single occupant vehicle. And we're investing significantly in the infrastructure to do that. And we need the community to come alongside us and make those shifts as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much to Laura and Adam. Appreciate it. And to all of our presenters tonight. Mayor Hancock, thank you for yet again allowing me to host your cabinet in the community. And with that, I will turn it over to you to close us out.
Gloria, thank you so very much. To Councilwoman Sawyer and to the residents of District 5, thank you so very much for hosting us tonight. Hopefully it was helpful. I want to thank all the presenters, Chief Paul Payson, Commanders Rick Kyle, and Kathy Bancroft. I want to thank Laura Aldrete of Community Planning and Development, Adam Phipps of Department of Transportation Infrastructure, Bob McDonald of Department of Public Health and Environment, and our fearless team that's behind the scenes. You cannot believe the dozens of people it takes to pull this off for just over an hour with a discussion on the virtual meeting. But we want to thank everyone behind the scene, our fearless leader, Katie Stracina, who is our Executive Director of Special Events for the City of Denver, helping to make this happen. Listen, the questions that did get answered in the queue today, we're going to make sure we get them downloaded and into Councilwoman Amanda Sawyer's office, but they'll also be online on our Facebook and our webpage. For you to get your answers. We can't thank you enough for tuning in tonight. We'll see you next time with in Cabinet Community. Feel free to join other council district meetings that we'll have over the next couple of months. You all have a great evening and take care.
If we don't have a healthy forest, we don't have healthy water. And if we don't have healthy water in Denver, then we don't have anything to drink. As long as we have healthy water here in Bear Creek, upriver, as it flows down, it'll help create a healthy ecosystem for the beavers, for the birds, for the foxes and coyotes that also make Denver their home. I think we have a lot of people that come to Denver with an expectation of being in the West. And one of the really amazing things about the Denver Mountain Parks is that we have all these amazing icons of the American West, these iconic landscapes, iconic animals, bison, the national mammal, Rocky Mountains, we have subalpine lakes, we have Buffalo Bill and the Museum and Grave, we have strong American Indian history, we have beautiful